afternoon and welcome to the May 22nd Council work session. And just a note, Councilor Zelenka has just arrived. We will be missing Councilor Evans today, but we should have a full crew. And our first order of business is Northwest Natural's low carbon pathway for Eugene. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll turn over to Ethan to introduce the team.
Great. Ethan Nelson, Intergovernmental Relations Manager, City of Eugene, and we've got staff and leaders from Northwest Natural. I'll let them introduce themselves as we as we go through this. What I did want to do is just do a brief kind of setting the stage in regards to the work that Council's been involved with and been working on the climate recovery ordinance for a little while, so that it kind of puts their presentation for Bill and Kim on into the context. So just real briefly, you've all seen this graphic. You may recall the CRO community goals call for a 50% reduction in fossil fuel use by 2030, and that's compared to 2010 usage. It also calls for Eugene to reduce community-wide greenhouse gas emissions by 7.6% annually through the year 2100. As you've also seen, our buckets, they're back again, and you're also going to see buckets in the next work session today, so it's bucket friendly. We've been divided into 3 different buckets: consumption, transportation, fuels, and energy used in buildings. We think about how we will close the gap between our current plans and the CRO goals. It is important to separate those 2 buckets with most within our scope of control that are within the sector-based approach versus the broader consumption-based approach. We track and report on both, yet we have more opportunities for direct action within transportation and the buildings bucket. Current phase of the CAP 2.0 is focusing in on these 2 buckets in that CAP, and once again is the Climate Action Plan. You did see this recently in a council email from Chelsea Clinton and our sustainability manager, and it's kind of our CAP 2.0 equation, and we're really trying to piece together how the moving pieces that have come before council and that we're working on right now that have impact here. And so as you can see, the ICAP, the Internal Climate Action Plan, and the magnitude of that, and I won't get into this for purposes right now, but we'll be able to answer questions if you have them later on. There's the Eugene Climate Collaborative Actions, which we've been working on for a while now, which involves a number of Eugene area stakeholders, including Northwest Natural Gas. State legislation, there's the impending, or the current bill proposed for cap and trade, and Bill will be able to talk a little bit about the impacts that would have on the natural gas sector. The GAP strategies, and that's actually what we put together, and we had a work session with you on the 30th of January. And so there's information there. And all of that equates to then what our target is around 790,000 metric tons of CO2 reduction by the 2030 goal. And so that's kind of where we are. And I think that gives me the opportunity then to turn it on over to Kim and Bill.
Great. Well, hello, and thanks for allowing us to come talk with you today. My name's Kim Heiding. I'm Senior Vice President of Operations at Northwest Natural. Joining me is Bill Edmonds. He's our Director of Environmental Policy and Sustainability. So we have a lot of material to get through in 45 minutes, so I'm going to dive right in. And I'm going to start with our shared values, because this is climate change, energy policy. These are very big, pervasive issues. And so we wanted to start to make sure that you understand that we are right where you are. We know that there is a climate imperative. It requires collective action. It requires us to innovate and evolve together with our communities. But we need to do it in a way that leaves no one behind. And as a utility, we can never forget that affordability lens. And that's really starts our triple bottom line objectives. The first is equity. We provide warmth. We provide an essential service to people that depend on us, and we have to do it affordably. In an increasingly low-carbon world, we have to be bringing on renewable energy, driving energy efficiency, and new technologies to lower emissions. And we have to do it in a way that still continues to support a vital and thriving economy. The natural gas system in the Northwest is the backbone of most of the business community. So how are we going to achieve the climate goals that you've set out for yourselves, that the state of Oregon has set out for itself, while keeping these objectives, all of these objectives in mind. Well, a couple of years ago, our company undertook a very comprehensive strategic planning effort, and we had carbon policy at the center of that effort. We looked at all the levers and the options that we could bring to bear to lower the emissions associated with our system and our customers' use. And we identified several options, but we wanted to have somebody come in and stress test our thinking and validate whether or not we had sort of thought of the spectrum of opportunities. So we went out and we hired E3, and you may have heard of E3. They are the environmental and economic consulting firm that really pioneered deep decarbonization studies nationwide. We hired them and we said, we want you to pay particular attention to serving space heating. When you go out and you look at all of the pathways that can achieve that 80% reduction in GHG emissions out in 2050 from that 1990s baseline. That is the decarbonization goal that we're all trying to achieve. They came back with the results of their study, and their results were actually very consistent with the other 3 deep decarbonization studies that have been done in the Northwest. And they show that we're going to need 5 key success factors in order to achieve this transformational change that's going to be required to get to these kinds of reductions. And those 5 factors are deep penetration of renewable energy in the electric sector, electrification of most of the transportation sector, deep energy efficiency, rapid and substantial development of biofuels, and finally, the strategic use of natural gas. Those 5 factors are included in every deep decarbonization study that's been done for the Northwest, including E3's work. Will we be using less natural gas in 2050? Absolutely. But its strategic use is present in every scenario, including high electrification scenarios. So what we asked E3 to do, again, look particularly at space heating and at our load. They came back and they said, Northwest Natural, if you can get 25% renewable energy into your pipeline system by 2050, you can help your region achieve the deep decarbonization goal more affordably and more reliably than other pathways. And the bottom line is because we'd be using the system that we've already got in place. So today we're going to talk to you about some of the components coming out of that study and the things that we're working on as a company to go down this deep decarbonization path and how we can apply those methodologies and those technologies here in Eugene to help you achieve your goals as well. But before we dive into those, I think it's really important, and I know that you've heard from eWeb about how connected the energy system is. Here in Oregon, Northwest Natural actually provides more energy to the state than any other utility. We're delivering 90% of our space and our water heat customers' energy on that cold, dark winter morning, and we're heating 74% of the residential square footage in our service areas. So we're serving 2 million people, 80,000 of them are right here in Eugene, and we're doing it for about 5% of the state's emissions. So what about Eugene? Clearly you have access to the region's crown jewel, which is the hydro system, but that's a regional asset. So when you look at the Good Companies analysis on location-based emissions, in Eugene, the gas system for serving residential businesses or residential homes and businesses accounts for 12% of Eugene's emissions. So that's our starting point. What are you getting for that 12%? What do we do in Eugene for your citizens? Well, on that cold, dark winter morning, the coldest mornings of the year, Northwest Natural system is providing more energy than the entire electric system here in Eugene. Who are we delivering that energy to? It's a very diverse set of customers. We have 22,000 homes, 3,000 businesses of all shapes and sizes, 78 government facilities, 186 educational facilities, and 216 healthcare facilities. And so in the back of our mind, as we're talking about carbon policy and the options to decarbonize over time, we will not be losing sight of the fact that we have to make sure we can do this affordably. And we know you're not losing sight of that either. We've done some analysis. When you look at our gas customers in Eugene and Springfield, 44% are low to moderate income. We know here in Eugene, over the last 5 years, home prices have increased 50%. We know that you have identified about 45% of your citizens are income burdened, so 30% or more of their income is going to their household expenses. These are real issues for real people. We know that. We're a utility. We hear from those people every day. And so I just start there because I want to recognize we know you've recognized this challenge and we have too. And it's why when we're considering the options that we can bring to bear using our system, we're keeping affordability in mind. So let's start going through those options. We have 3 areas of reduction opportunity. The first is to reduce the carbon intensity of what's going through our pipeline system. A lot of people get this concept on the electric side. You go from coal generation to natural gas to more and more renewable energy. And that's happening in the state of Oregon. And over the time, that carbon intensity reduces. You can do the same thing in the natural gas infrastructure sector. You can start with conventional natural gas, which is actually much cleaner than coal. You move to renewable natural gas from waste streams, and you integrate in more hydrogen, renewable hydrogen. And we'll talk more about those concepts in a moment. We also have to, of course, pay attention to upstream emissions, and I'll cover that in a moment as well. The second area of opportunity is really reducing use through energy efficiency and offsetting the rest through our smart energy product. And it's also will include the introduction of new technologies, which Bill will cover. And then finally, displacing diesel in the transportation market, particularly the heavy-duty market. There are just certain types of transportation that electrification isn't well suited to today for performance or cost issues. And that is a place that CNG, RNG, and hydrogen can play, and play quite effectively. So those are the areas of opportunity. But let's start with methane, because methane matters, and the full value chain of natural gas and the emissions associated with that value chain matter. So we're going to start with what we know. The EPA, the Obama Area Administration's EPA, started with a bottoms-up analysis of emissions for the full value chain of natural gas. So now every year, every well in the United States and every facility in the United States reports its emissions. And when you've collected all of that data from the point of production all the way down to the delivery into our system, it represents 1.2%. So that's our starting point. But we know we have to do better. And there's a wide recognition, I would say, in the entire natural gas industry that we need to do better. Right now, there is a group of large producers that have joined the effort with the EPA. It's called One Future, and they've set their sights on a 1% or lower full value chain emissions target. And I'm really pleased to say just in the last 2 years, those producers have managed to exceed that target. So one point, hopefully, that you can take away when we're talking about the full value chain, and in particular production, it is not static. I think there is a perception that there isn't innovation and new technology being brought to bear, and that's just not the case. In fact, there's new technology around tankless liquids unloading, no-bleed pneumatic devices. There's new sensors and equipment on site to be looking at every single sector of production and making sure that we identify the leaks and we take care of the leaks. And the good news here is that we are aligned as a gas buyer buying this product on behalf of our customers with the producer communities, because every molecule that they keep in the pipe has an economic value to them. So they're as interested in these new technologies as we are, and we're really seeing progress. When you layer on new technologies with really good state regulation, you see the results. And we happen to have a real advantage at Northwest Natural in that we purchase our gas on behalf of our customers from Canada and the Rocky Mountains. Those are two of the most stringently regulated basins and geographic areas in the world in terms of methane. And let me give you an example of where state regulation really can make a difference. It's making a difference in Colorado. They have the most stringent regulations of any state in the country. From 2011 to 2017, they put some of those new technologies into practice. They passed really stringent laws, and they saw a 45% decrease in emissions related to production. So we know that it's happening, and we know that there's more that can be done, and I think the message is the industry is innovating, and gas purchasers like Northwest Naturals and others are heavily involved in pressing for that innovation. So what can we do as a natural gas utility? Because it isn't just up to the producers. We have that full value chain. The most important thing we can do as a gas utility is make sure we've replaced all of our old pipe. Northwest Natural was one of the first utilities in the country to remove all bare steel and cast iron pipe from our system. We have one of the most newest modern systems in the country. We're also at the forefront in our industry in a lot of different areas trying to lead on innovation around emission reduction. We were a founding member of the US EPA Methane Challenge Program, which is a voluntary program where companies are stepping up, working together on best practices to identify emission reduction opportunities. We participated in the Environmental Defense Fund's national study. EDF and Washington State went nationally and looked at distribution companies, and we raised our hand and said, come on in, assess our system, tell us where we can do better, and they confirmed we have indeed one of the newest, tightest systems in the country. We're part of the Natural Gas Supply Collaborative. That is again, a voluntary organization of like-minded gas purchasers that want to see more transparency in production. They want to see the use of best practices in production. We fund the Gas Technology Institute, where our dollars go to leak detection and equipment innovation around leak detection and repair. And we're a member of the Downstream Natural Gas Initiative. This is a new group that's looking at innovations like renewable natural gas and blending in renewable hydrogen into the gas system. So one of the things to leave you with is we are right in the middle of innovation happening in the gas sector. Our CEO is co-chairing the Carbon Task Force at the American Gas Association in DC, and we have seen quite a great amount of progress, and it's sometimes frustrating and unfortunate from our perspective that progress doesn't get communicated to the public. But there is more that we can do, and we're right in the middle of making sure that happens. So that is the sliver around upstream methane reduction. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bill, and he's going to talk about getting renewable energy into our pipeline system.
Thanks, Kim. Well, Kim set that up, and I will hearken back to that, what we call the bucket slide, and I'll just have you recall the first bucket is lowering the carbon intensity of the product we deliver to customers. The second is helping our customers save energy, use less of what we bring to their house and their business, and the third is displacing higher carbon fuels using renewable natural gas, for example, to displace diesel. So I'll start with renewable natural gas, and I think a good place to begin is, what is this? Not everybody knows. There's organic material in and around our world that is releasing methane as it decomposes. A picture on the slide says it's wastewater treatment plants, it's food waste, it's landfills, it's even wood on the forest floor. All that organic material is producing methane. If we can capture that methane, clean it up to pipeline quality, and put it on our pipeline, that's renewable natural gas. And we aim to do just that. I think the first question is, what is it? And the second really important question is there enough to matter? Why is that an important question? If we're going to spend a lot of time working on this question, building policy around renewable natural gas, we have to know that there's enough to really move the needle on greenhouse gas reductions. Luckily, the Oregon Department of Energy just finished a study on the technical potential for renewable natural gas in Oregon. And what they found, the number up there, 48 BCF, or billion cubic feet. What is that? 48 billion cubic feet is exactly the amount of gas that all residential customers in Oregon use. So by our measure, that's definitely enough to matter. If we can get renewable natural gas on our system, anything equal to all residential usage, that is meaningful. And for us, that means this is an issue that we need to go after, and go after effectively and quickly. If that's the potential slide, this is the progress slide. And the progress slide shows where is renewable natural gas being put on the natural gas system. What this shows is that there's 100 current projects being injected into the natural gas pipeline. So that's progress. It also shows that there's 60 or so more that are in the pipeline, if you will, to become injected into the pipeline. So I guess I describe this as really quick growth of renewable natural gas onto the nation's system, but still early days. There are not a whole lot of projects, but it shows that it's moving and moving quickly. What we want to do at Northwest Natural is put ourselves and put our region on the map, if you will, for renewable natural gas, and we're doing just that. 3 projects, and we'll come back to the one that's local, 3 projects are interconnecting to our system right now, and we expect renewable natural gas to flow onto our system from all 3 projects by early 2020. How much renewable natural gas is that? Taken all together, it's about 2% of our total sales throughput. So a good first step. And I think maybe worth note that we've been adding wind and solar to the electric system for a long time, just as we need to be. And we're at about 6 to 8% at a state level in terms of wind and solar added to our system. So we're proud that we're beginning to make good progress on adding renewables to our system. We know that this should happen quickly, and that it's going to take public policy to allow it to happen quickly. Quick sip of water here. How will it happen? It has to happen with public policy, and besides interconnecting projects, we want to be a leader in that area as well. We've drafted and are supporting a bill called SB 98. You'll hear more about this, but it's a bill that, if passed, and we think it will open the door to utilities purchasing renewable natural gas. More on that later. So let me pull a few numbers together here. Kim mentioned the E3 study and said that if we can get to 25% renewable natural gas on our system, we can be playing the part for our society to get to its 80% reductions. That's what we need to do, and is a laudable and important goal for utilities to have. So is that doable? Let's look at those numbers. We found that in Oregon, there was about 48 or 50 BCF of technical potential. And while we will start shopping for RNG in Oregon, we will certainly be willing to find RNG elsewhere. And in the nation, there's a few studies, not the same detailed study that Oregon has, but the national study finds 9 trillion BCF of technical potential around the country. So we think a goal of 25% in 2050, or what would be 29 BCF in 2050, is audacious goal, but very much a doable goal, and we intend to hit that. The targets along the bottom come from that bill that I just referenced, SB 98. Those are targets that we think, again, are achievable, 15% in 2030 and moving up to 30% in 2050. And you can see that they're consistent with what E3 found the natural gas utilities need to be doing to reach deep decarbonization. So I mentioned there's 3 projects interconnecting, and one of them is right here in Eugene Springfield, the wastewater treatment plant. It shows there on the slide the benefits in terms of carbon reduction, using 100% of the methane rather than flaring it, and some local benefits in terms of dollars coming back to the plant. I guess what I want to focus on is the leadership of Eugene and Springfield, a leadership that we really appreciate. As I said, it's early days for renewable natural gas, and it's not easy for a city to say, all right, we're going to move ahead with this project. 2 of our customers, Portland and Eugene, have said they're willing to do that, and we very much appreciate that leadership, the leadership here in Eugene that says we're willing willing to take a risk on this. The numbers are compelling, but it's still hard to go first, and it will take leaders like Eugene Springfield to make these projects happen. So now I'm going to move from renewable natural gas to power to gas. And power to gas is what we hope can be then added to renewable natural gas to lower our carbon intensity. It's a product that, or a process that takes a little bit of explanation, and we have a schematic diagram there to help with that process. It starts with excess renewable electricity, and I want you to think about hydro in the spring and wind in the spring, where we have a lot of renewable energy at a time when we may not be able to use all that renewable energy. That spring wind, spring hydro is excess renewable energy that can, through electrolysis process, become hydrogen. You can see up there the molecules of oxygen and hydrogen being split. So now we have renewably produced hydrogen. And here's where the schematic diagram, I'm going to move from it a little bit. That renewably produced hydrogen can go directly onto our pipeline. We can put about 10% of renewable hydrogen on our pipeline without any change in end use, any changes in the end use for our customers. That's one way to decarbonize, to lower the carbon intensity of our product. What this schematic shows is us taking carbon, waste carbon from an industrial facility, and using that to what we call methanize the hydrogen. A little bit of chemistry here, and I apologize it gets complicated, but with that methanized hydrogen, we now have synthetic renewable methane produced from excess electricity and from water. And that renewable synthesized methane can go at any concentration onto our pipeline. So while there are those technical limits in terms of how much RNG we're going to be able to find, this process of power to gas can provide an infinite amount of renewable energy onto our pipeline and help us decarbonize that pipeline. So this is another map we want to get onto. You can see that Europe is way ahead of North America with about 40 projects and more moving forward, with only 3 in North America. And we aim to change that. We aim to put a power to gas project right here in Eugene. And we put together a set of blue chip partners listed here on the left side. eWeb helping lead this with us, the Pacific Northwest Labs, Oregon State University, and Hitachi, among others. Hitachi is an electrolyzer producer, maker, and so they're an important part of this puzzle as well. What do we aim to do here in this Eugene project? We're going to do a little of everything. We're going to take excess renewables from eWeb and use that to make renewable hydrogen. That renewable hydrogen can go directly onto our system and help decarbonize, lower the carbon intensity of our process. We also aim to get some of that pure renewable hydrogen into vehicles. It can be used for a fuel cell vehicle that operates on hydrogen, and we want to prove that point. Lastly, we're looking at ways to methanize a portion of that hydrogen, and through methanization also be able to put that onto our pipeline. So I guess I want to really focus in on the idea that together with these partners, we can be a leader in the nation. This is a project that hasn't ever been done in the country, and we would love to be first. Love to be first here in Eugene. Right now, we're putting together the application with these partners for a U.S. Department of Energy Hydrogen at Scale grant. That and other avenues for helping to fund the project are well underway, and we're optimistic that we'll get this on the ground. So that finishes up that bucket of lowering the carbon intensity of the product we serve. And I guess to emphasize what Kim mentioned, we've been thinking about the electric side for a long time and lowering the carbon intensity of what comes over the wire, just like we need to do as we go to deep decarbonization. We want the same logic and aggressiveness and thoughtfulness going to decarbonizing what's coming to your home or business on the pipeline. But once it gets there, we're not done with our work. We need to help our customers use less of what we're bringing them. and that gets us to energy efficiency. When I get to this slide, I like to say it's about energy efficiency, energy efficiency, energy efficiency, because energy efficiency is the biggest part of our goal and it's the cheapest part of our goal. If we step over energy efficiency, we won't get there, and we'll pay a lot more to try to get to the deep decarbonization goals that we need to get to. This slide shows what's happening in Eugene already in terms of our work with the Energy Trust, which, as you may know, provides incentives for energy efficiency around Eugene to gas customers. You can see there's already 8,200 customers in Eugene that have participated with the Energy Trust, with over 13,000 tons annually reduced because of that work. We've also broken it down a little further. You can see the participation among the residential, commercial, and industrial customers are very high residential participation, over 30%, which we should all be proud of. A little lower for commercial and industrial. And I think this is an area where, as we've sat down with the Energy Trust, we want to make sure that we're building on that effort to bring additional industrial and residential customers sorry, I'm looking for my little thing here. Bring industrial and commercial customers along so that we can hit that participation rate that we have at the residential level. One of the ways of doing that is through compelling case studies, and we need compelling case studies with numbers that will bring businesses along. I think we all know that they've got sharp pencils, and this has to make sense for them. A quick local case study: the Ninkasi Brewing Company was putting in new boilers and opted for efficient boilers. They were able to increase their capacity by 3 times. I'm hoping that means maybe more total domination, or 3 times as much total domination. What it meant for them was they trimmed their energy costs by $72,000 for a project that cost them about $71,000. And they did that with an Energy Trust grant that was $35,000. So those are compelling numbers, and compelling numbers that we hope other businesses and other industries here in Eugene will follow suit, and we can go deeper and deeper in this world of energy efficiency. I'll go through this quickly. How are we going to go deeper in Eugene? Maybe just 2 things to bring up. One, strategic partnerships with eWeb. In most of our service territory, the Energy Trust serves both electric and gas needs. That provides a more compelling case for the customer. You can insulate their roof, you can provide a more efficient appliance, and you can bring some LEDs while you're at it, both gas and electric savings at the same time. That's a more compelling program for a customer. It's also a more efficient program to operate, and you can do it at lower cost. We're now beginning that work with eWeb to figure out how and where we can combine efforts to provide energy efficiency at the same time for our customers. Emerging technology. In some cases, yes, it's always great to insulate the home. It's always great to put a little more efficient appliance in, but we need step changes in terms of efficient appliances. And I'll point you towards the gas heat pump water heater. Right now, your tank water heater that operates on gas is about 60% efficient, which is efficient, but the gas heat pump water heater will be 140% efficient. That kind of step change will dramatically reduce dollars spent on gas, therms used, and importantly, carbon emitted from natural gas. So we're looking for those kind of step changes with our work with the Northwest Energy Efficiency Alliance. So energy efficiency helps people save money, and it's probably fairly fair to say no more important than when we're dealing with the most, with those customers that are most likely to be left behind in the world of carbon constraints. We work very hard with a low-income population, and we couldn't do it without our partnership with Homes for Good, our CAP agency partner here in Eugene. It's hard to develop these programs and hard to implement the programs, and they do it with great care and great knowledge. Why is it hard? Well, these programs have to be implemented in a way that's a little different than the energy efficiency programs that we operate with the Energy Trust. A couple examples. With low-income customers, we use a whole home approach. We go there and do all the weatherization and all the appliance work we can, knowing that it'll be a long time before we get back to that house. They aren't single measure programs like they are with the Energy Trust. Secondly, we have to do repairs while we're doing energy efficiency. You can't blow in insulation into a roof if you've got a leaky roof. So there has to be money as part of these programs to provide repairs for that roof. And then lastly, the CAP agencies, very rightly, are trying to do a whole lot of things for their clients all at once. They may be doing lead abatement, asbestos removal, all of those things all at once as part of the energy program. We know that that's the best way to help these customers, and we really appreciate the CAP agency's ability to do all those things at once. All right, couple more, and then I'll turn it back to Kim. The Smart Energy Program is something Northwest Natural is proud of. We were the first gas utility to develop a voluntary program to help customers offset the emissions from their gas use. Our little tagline is use less, offset the rest, and the order of that is really important. Efficiency comes first, squeeze the amount of gas you're using, and then turn to smart energy to offset the remaining emissions from your gas use. We've been at this for 12 years, and we have 7% of our customers signed up for the program. There's no voluntary gas program in the country that's more successful than ours. That work has led to 10 offset projects that the Climate Trust has helped us develop. That means dairy farms that wouldn't have biodigesters, but now they do because of smart energy. Speaking of leadership, the bar chart over there shows that Eugene and Corvallis are in a dead heat in terms of residential percentage of smart energy signups. So we're very proud of those two cities for the hard work already. Eugene has a dedicated street team here that's helping spread the word, which is part of why we're at 20%. We know we can do more, and we're looking forward to ways to work with the city and work with our customers so that next time we're here, we're not in a dead heat with Corvallis, but ahead instead. And then the last slide for me, or last bucket slide for me, is the area of transportation. In general, renewable natural gas will make the most sense for heavy-duty vehicles that return to base and can fuel up. That means they only need one refueling station, and because these heavy-duty vehicles tend to operate many, many miles, they fully benefit from the low cost of RNG that they will operate on. So in general, you won't see light-duty solutions from us in terms of using RNG, except for one, and that's the police force. The police force has to have a special kind of car that's called pursuit rated, and there's no electric vehicle that is pursuit rated. So what police forces are doing is turning to a bi-fuel vehicle, which operates both on gasoline and RNG. It's cheaper for the police force to operate, and it has a greater range. So it's one of the options that we list here for Eugene. There's also medium heavy-duty trucking and transit at Lane County, both that have ready solutions that could use renewable natural gas today. In all those cases, fuel costs will be reduced by the use of renewable natural gas, as well as reducing carbon use. Because we're getting dirty diesel off the road in all those cases, we also have very much local air quality improvements that are a benefit from moving, another clear benefit of moving from diesel to renewable natural gas. And then finally, before turning back to Kim, Oregon has taken some important steps on renewable natural gas, on cap and trade. And there was just movement last Friday in HB 2020, which is Oregon's cap and trade bill. It moved out of the policy committee and is now in Ways and Means. With these amendments, we are now supportive of the bill, and we're also quite I think, confident that we think it will pass. So this is a really important bill to watch in the context of what we're talking about in terms of greenhouse gas reductions. This puts in statute that the total economy-wide cap of an 80% reduction by 2050. It's a meaningful move. We've been waiting for it for some time. It's a meaningful move, too, we think, because the way that the gas section has been recrafted, I think, is a smart way to recraft craft it, and I'll just raise 2 points in it. One, it provides free allowances for low-income customers. That's an appropriate way to hold them harmless so that they're not paying more as we see price impacts of cap and trade. Secondly, it takes gas dollars that gas customers pay and returns them to help drive down greenhouse gas reductions. So the activities we've been talking about today, deeper efficiency, buying renewable natural gas, even power to gas, will receive helpful funding from a cap and trade bill if this passes as designed. So it's hard to know exactly the timing of how we'll know what the rate impacts of this will be and exactly how many dollars will flow back to greenhouse gas reductions. If it passes this session, we expect rulemaking to begin right away, but it's going to be a very large and complex rulemaking, and I suspect it will be 2021 until we know exactly the details of the bill and how it plays out for both us and for Eugene.
Okay, well, I'll wrap up here. Anytime we're talking about, again, issues as big as climate and climate policy and energy, we do research all the time, and you probably do too. So we hired DHM, who is a very well-respected research firm here in Oregon, to go out and ask your citizens and our customers how they feel about a lot of these issues. And I think that the results are probably not surprising to you, and I don't think they were very surprising to us. We actually had more of the participants in the study that were non-customers than customers. And I think pervasively what citizens want is likely what all of us at this table want. They want smart, pragmatic solutions. They want solutions that will materially reduce emissions, but do it at an affordable cost. And I think they want to preserve energy diversification, resiliency, reliability, and choice. And the good news is, from the analysis we've done and from the roadmap that we've already created, we're very confident we can accomplish all of those things. But it is going to take collaboration and working together. So we have many things that we've talked about as a company that we're going to be doing and are already doing. We're pursuing renewable gas, we're pursuing power to gas, we're promoting smart energy, energy efficiency programs, and we're funding new technology innovations. But we're going to need help, just like every aspect of your Climate 2.0 action goal. It's got to be a collaboration. We need our customers' participation, and we also need the city's collaboration and participation to achieve the collective goal. But as I said, we feel very confident and really are very excited about some of the cutting-edge projects between the renewable natural gas project at the wastewater treatment plant here in Eugene and our partnership with EWEB and others on a potential power to gas facility here. I mean, those move the needle certainly for our industry, but I think cross-sectionally showing how gas and electric infrastructure can really be used complementary to drive our carbon reduction goals forward. So thanks so much, and I think we are right on time here.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of information.
Sorry.
Spoken very quickly, but I think I tracked
love
it
it.
more or less, and I really appreciate what you've brought to the table. I already have Alan in the queue to make some comments or ask questions, so go for it.
Yeah, wow, that was a lot of information, and really good information. And thank you, Kim and Bill, for coming down to Eugene to be with us today. A couple of comments about what we heard. One is that the deep decarbonization study that Northwest Natural has done, they didn't talk about it, but it's a very innovative and rather unique. I think it's the first in the country. I don't know of any other natural gas utility in the country that's actually taken this on and done this. So they are on the vanguard with regard to natural gas companies and leaders in this. And it really shows that their commitment, as are all of our other types of electric utilities in Oregon, to reduce greenhouse gases. Our utility sector is not the problem in greenhouse gases. This is mostly around the transportation sector. But that commitment to get 80% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2050, so this is the start of a good plan. It's not I don't think it's a plan yet, but it's getting there. And I also think that they have a real commitment to work with Eugene. They didn't mention it, but a couple of weeks ago, we got a letter from their CEO, and that's pretty rare to get letters from the CEO saying, we're willing to work with you guys. And you know, the Power to Gas program, the MWMC RNG project are just really good examples of local things, and the Smart Energy program already have the highest. So everybody that's listening, if you're not already signed up, sign up for that program so we can beat out Corvallis. So doing an agreement with them, a bilateral agreement with Northwest Natural, I think is a smart way to go for us. With specifics and accountability mechanisms, I think we'll get there faster, cheaper, and better if we do that rather than going down the franchise fee route. My experience with that, having been in the utility industry, that anytime you go after franchise fees, that mechanism, try to accomplish anything other than use of right-of-way, immediately gets the lawyers involved, becomes very contentious, adds time, money, and effort to get to start. So from the CEO down in Northwest Natural, I think we've got a willing partner to work with us to have a model for other cities to emulate as well. And so I'm really eager to work with them. I can't think of a better city than Eugene to work with on doing something like this, to create a model that other cities could work with. And then working collaboratively, I think we can meet our goals, and we can reduce their greenhouse gases and our community's greenhouse gases from the natural gas sector and keep their feet to the fire. And so I think we have a willing partner in these guys. I'm eager to get to work with them with the specific actions that we need and the timelines and the accountability mechanisms. And as we like to say in Eugene, accountability mechanisms are to make sure that the promises made, promises kept. We've done that in our road bonds and other things. So that's kind of the thinking that we bring to this. If it fails, we always got the franchise fee to go back to. But I have a real quick question. The role of the PUC in a bilateral agreement. If we have an agreement with you guys, you're a regulated utility and they regulate what you spend, how you spend it, and so you can rate base so you can get your rate of return. How would they take that into consideration, our bilateral agreement, when we go beyond business as usual and their role in talking about affordability, for instance, but also prudency of your costs?
I think it's a really great question, and it's uncharted territory. So we would have to sit down, look at, what are our commitments, what are the city commitments, what are we hoping to accomplish, what are the cost parameters of that package. There are programs or avenues that we can pursue that can accommodate some pursuit of reductions that are outside our cost effectiveness box, because you're right, as utility, we just don't have the purview to say, oh, we're going to spend whatever Eugene might want to spend on reductions because we're regulated under state regulation. There is Senate Bill 844, which is a bill that was passed that allows natural gas utilities to fund carbon reduction projects that are not cost effective if they can show a carbon reduction benefit and a customer benefit. And so that's a potential avenue, but to be truthful, we fully expect cap and trade to pass, and that will give us a new framework for which we can do a lot more than we can do today. And so that's our sort of first hope. We also have our renewable natural gas bill that we are hopeful will pass. That will also give us more, running room to do more creative things. So I think there's a lot of big policy at play that is going to give us a lot more flexibility than we have today. But even if for some reason that policy wasn't passed, I think we do have some, within 844, we have an ability to work together on a joint proposal and go down to the commission, for example. Let's say we needed additional funding for the power to gas project that we couldn't get through partnerships. Perhaps we create a joint proposal together, we go down to the commission and we advocate for its passage, because that kind of project doesn't just help Eugene, it helps demonstrate technology that could then be broadly applied. So there are some areas of flexibility, but I think we just have to sit down and sort of roll up our sleeves because it's uncharted territory.
Okay. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so Alan's a certified smart guy in this area, so I will be asking the less smart questions. So I want to make sure I understand. Right now, your supply is 0% renewable, correct?
Right, we are conventional natural gas.
Just want to make sure. And so in approximately 30 years, you think you can get to 25%?
Well, actually, by the end of next year, we'll have about 2% of our sales volume that's flowing as renewable natural gas. At first, it's going to go to the vehicle market because all of the production and the development of renewable natural gas is being funded by the incentives coming out of California. But eventually, and that's why we're hoping this RNG bill passes, just like the RPS, it will help fund development of renewable natural gas for homes and businesses. And again, I mean, I would point back to what Bill said. 2% might not sound like a lot, but in the state of Oregon today, 8% of our state's electric generation is wind and solar. So 2% of our sales volume in less than 2 years, we feel like is a good start.
Yeah, we need to do a lot better on wind and solar, that is for sure. So what are the barriers that are keeping us in 30 years only being able to get to 25%?
Well, 25%, right now, let's say we have 80 billion cubic feet of natural gas. 25% is almost 30 billion cubic feet. That's actually a lot of supply. And if you think about it, we have a 50% renewable energy portfolio standard on the electric side out in 2050, and we've been at it a long time. So it's actually, while the percentage might sound low, it's a very large volume of supply. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that out in 2050, we're squeezing down energy use through energy efficiency. For example, we can build net zero energy gas homes today. You pair them with solar, you can get to neutrality on home building today, and it actually can be cheaper to build those homes with gas than electric because you don't need as much solar. So there's a lot of things that we can do to start down that path. But remember, in terms of the economy-wide reduction, the goal is to start low on the cost curve of carbon reduction and work your way up. And that's why the E3 study shows we only need 25% blended in our pipeline to achieve that economy-wide deep decarbonization goal. So that's sort of I think the misnomer. We believe, and we're sometimes told, that we need to get 100% renewable energy in every sector. And these deep decarbonization studies show that isn't the case. In fact, we need to start low on the cost curve and work our way up. And by using the existing system in place and blending in renewable energy, we can get to that economy-wide goal cheaper and more reliably.
Okay, so if one of the things I'm hearing maybe is that this 25% is based on current usage, so if we were to lower our usage, that 25% would actually be more than 25% at some point? Or
Well,
is that
actually,
assuming that we're also reducing our use and, okay.
Yeah.
So the 25% is already assuming less usage?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this power to gas thing, I only have recently learned about it. So is this calculated into that, or this would be on top of renewable?
That would be-
mix them, I guess.
You can blend in renewable natural gas, which is interchangeable. The molecules are interchangeable with conventional natural gas. And on top of that, you can blend in hydrogen. So one of the pathways that the E3 study looked at was a 25% blend of renewable natural gas and an added 7% blend of renewable hydrogen. So then you're getting, over whatever that math is, do that math in my head. But that's really what's exciting to us, because if we can get to hydrogen, not only can we blend in hydrogen, but we can take carbon capture and utilization. So we can take CO2 from the air, apply it to that process, and methanate that hydrogen. You could have unlimited amounts of renewable energy in the gas system. And I think that's just not a concept people are quite caught up to yet. It's certainly a concept they're running hard in Europe because they have so much intermittent renewables, and it's a real challenge for them. So they're looking at how do we use the gas system in a more effective way to deal with that long duration seasonal storage that we need so badly.
Right, Okay. So the smart energy participation, I understand this is people are imposing their own fees on themselves. You guys aren't participating. This is customers paying, right?
Customers voluntarily paying to offset their emissions.
We do, for our gas use, participate, but in terms of what that means, those are volunteers who sign up for $5.50 a month, and those dollars go to offset projects.
Very, very similar to the electric renewable volunteer programs.
Well, we thank those people who have decided to do that. That's very awesome. Okay, so we also had a slide where we are talking about RNG. Are you in any active conversations with the police force or LTD right now? Or are these just...
We've just done the analysis to see how much diesel they burned. We are not haven't had those conversations with the police force yet.
Right, so, okay, these are just hypotheticals. Okay,
These are
awesome.
options, yeah.
I understand the police recently bought hybrids, so I think maybe we are going in a different direction. Okay, I think those are all of my questions. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Sure.
Any other, oh, yes, I have Claire.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks for coming today. I'll start by saying two things. One, I'm much more skeptical than my colleague Alan about some of the things that were presented today and how collaborative this relationship is in terms of helping us meet our goals. And second, I just signed up for the volunteer Smart Energy program because I am a Northwest Natural gas customer. So, you know, I appreciate that your company and your industry is seeing that you have to change your business model in light of climate change. But I think your initiatives need to be greatly enhanced. I understand your position that relative to other emission sources, your product isn't the biggest contributor to emissions, but it still has a significant part to play. And we have an obligation to make sure that all contributors are taking action in spite of their relative contribution to the problem. So I also understand why you compare your efforts to that of other utilities that deliver their energy via other means. But that reasoning doesn't really move me very much. I want to know what you're doing in your capacity as a utility to demonstrate that you're helping us to meet our goals. I have to say I find much of what's presented here to be about possible future actions and kind of light on current on-the-ground actions that we can really measure. So I have some questions. One is in the presentation, you listed over 200 healthcare facilities as customers for the city of Eugene, and that seems very high to me. So how are you defining healthcare facility?
I think it's a SIC code, so it could be a hospital down to a care facility, nursing home, assisted living. It's got, yeah.
That's what I thought. Just wanted to check. So have you set goals for increasing the participation in the energy efficiency piece that you've talked to?
Yeah, what we've done at this point is we sat down with the Energy Trust to say where is the participation and how deep are we going in each of those categories. And what we found is, as I mentioned, commercial and industrial are the real opportunities. And we've started to pull out both what kinds of firms are most likely and what kind of projects they would be most likely to put in. And so we've begun to do just that and need to get to then a concrete goal of what we can do in the next 2 or 3 years. I know that the city's looking out out a long way in terms of 2050 and even 2100. What we really want to do is hit the ground running with very concrete goals for the 2 or 3 years in terms of energy efficiency.
So, but you don't have any set yet. So you're in the process of setting those goals.
We are.
And then in terms of the participation in the Smart Energy Program, have you set goals for increasing participation there?
Yeah, we think we can double participation here in Eugene.
Yeah, I think you could too. So I actually signed up just after one of our last work sessions, and then I did have one of your canvassers come to my door as well, and she was
How did
very
that go?
pleasant. It was a great experience. Yeah. So I think that's a great program, and I encourage you to invest in that and see if you can meet that goal as quickly as possible.
One thing that we've sometimes found successful, sorry to interrupt you, is that cities can use the bully pulpit to help drive especially businesses and their interest in smart energy. We've done that in some cities and would love to have more conversations with you about that.
Great. Are you engaged at the state level with the transformation away from diesel that we're undertaking?
We are on the dirty diesel bill, engaged in it to some extent. I think renewable natural gas is one of the pathways for truckers to move, and I think a promising pathway. So we're engaged in that bill to some extent.
Great. So, you know, I share some of what Councillor Ye had to say. I think, you know, decarbonization, bringing it down to 30% in 30 years, you know, obviously there's a lot of technical issues there that I am not educated on, but that I just feel like that is too anemic a goal or a target at this point, given the urgency that we are facing in terms of needing to reduce our emissions. So I'm really going to be pushing for your company to do things faster.
Maybe one bit of context there, because again, if you look at all the deep decarbonization studies, I want to be really clear. In every study, in the high electrification where space heat is electrified, they're using about the same amount of natural gas. So I encourage you to look at those studies, because I think there's a perception that if you don't use natural gas directly, somehow you're not using natural gas. You're using natural gas in 2050 to achieve the goal, and you're either going to use it in more peaker plants or you're going to use it directly in our system. And so I think that's one of the misnomers. Even here in Oregon today, natural gas is used in two ways. About half of it is used in our system directly, and the other half is used for power generation today. When coal to clean takes effect, if you look at all of the IRP planning documents and the Northwest Power Planning plans, that number for electric generation from gas is going to grow. So when you think about getting to 25% renewable natural gas or 30% renewable natural gas in the pipeline, remember that is allowing you to achieve the Connie-Mawai goal more affordably. The goal gets met. And again, I think there's this perception that you have to have 100% renewable energy throughout the energy sector. That isn't the case in order to achieve the goal. And all of the studies show you still have natural gas use. And again, I think it's just a common misperception, but we would agree with you in that we're at the very early stages of innovation. I mean, the fact that we have technology today that we can take excess wind and solar energy, turn it into hydrogen, turn that into methanated gas, and deliver it. We have that technology today. The only thing that would stop us from getting to 100% renewable energy in our pipeline is cost and investment. And as a utility, just to also be clear, we have rules with which we are regulated. So even if we would like to go out to tomorrow and invest in large volumes of renewable natural gas, we have regulation that we have to live within. And it's why we're very hopeful that this renewable natural gas bill gets passed, because it will allow us to do some of the things that you want us to do that today we can't. And we're very optimistic about it, because the reality is the other fact that is pervasive in these deep decarbonization studies, we have to do something about waste. And the most efficient way to use waste is in our pipeline. It's not for power generation. If you put it through power generation, you're going to waste 40 to 60% of it in that process. If you take that waste, you clean out the impurities and you put it in our pipeline system, you preserve the biggest climate impact, which is an 80% or better carbon reduction benefit. So We've thought a lot about these issues. We've researched them very carefully. We're right in the middle of the innovation, and we agree with you. We want to be doing these things. And we 100% believe we will. We just have to get some policy to catch up with our thinking. And it looks like it's happening. And I think absolutely Oregon's going to be a leader.
Okay, Betty.
Thank you. Does some of your gas come from fracking?
Most of our gas comes from Canada and the U.S. Rocky Mountains, and that's primarily conventional. But I think when people ask the question about fracking, what they are really caring about is methane emissions at production. And as I stated previously, the full value chain of the natural gas sector, from production to delivery, is 1.2%. And there's a lot at play to try and squeeze that down under 1%. To give you context, the full life cycle of coal is 4%, and it also has very significant air particulate and air pollution issues with it. So when electric utilities are using more natural gas for generation and away from coal, that's why the United States has a 25-year low in terms of its emission reduction. It's because those electric utilities are able to use natural gas. We don't sell natural gas to electric utilities. They buy it on their own. But that is one of the climate benefits that the United States is seeing from that transition.
So are you saying there's a limitless supply forever of gas?
You know, they're certainly saying there is a lot of supply, but I would say that from our perspective, we need to the extent we can, we need to be sipping all energy. We need to be squeezing all energy use down with energy efficiency and technology innovation, because that's just better. We're gonna have lower emissions faster and cheaper if we do that. So whether or not there's a lot of supply is very different than should we be using it all, and I think the answer is no. We need to be very conservative and innovate our way to using a lot less.
Well, I think should we be using it from fracking is a really important question. I noticed a lot of pictures of cows. That's cow manure you're talking about, right? So if people stop eating meat, we all become vegetarians, you'll lose that, right?
Well, they'll
Is that an important source right now, cows, cow manure?
go ahead, Bill.
Well, dairy farms is one source of renewable natural gas. It's actually not a very big slice of the technical potential. It happens to be very low carbon intensity gas, but no, it's not a huge piece of the overall supply.
And how about garbage dumps?
Well, garbage dumps is a slightly larger piece of the supply. And again, I think what our approach is we're certainly not pro-garbage or necessarily even pro-meat, but if you've got a dairy farm or you've got a landfill, it's certainly a better thing if we can capture that methane that would otherwise be emitted and put it to work.
I don't think we're going to get rid of landfills. If the population continues to grow, then you will have more customers and more need for saving. Is that true?
Well, one thing I think we will see is we will get smarter about our waste. For example, food waste getting pulled out of the waste stream is obviously a good thing for a lot of reasons, but that food waste can then be put into a biodigester and make renewable natural gas. When it's put into a landfill, that process isn't nearly as efficient.
So we need to get it all in one place?
It's better if we can separate that waste and put food waste directly into a biodigester in terms of getting gas from it.
And you said you're replacing all the pipes. Is that correct? Did you replace them all in Eugene?
Yes, when I was talking about pipe modernization, that's getting rid of all of the bare steel cast iron pipe that you might hear about in other parts of the country. Yes, we completed that removal.
So we don't have to worry right away about explosions in the gas pipes?
No, and the biggest risk to our infrastructure is people digging into the pipe. And it's why we have a very aggressive call before you dig messaging. We actually have very high awareness of call before you dig, but it's the area that we're most focused on in terms of making sure people do what they're supposed to do, call 2 days ahead, and then hand dig around our infrastructure.
How deep are they?
Oh, boy, I think 5 feet. I'm going to have to look at. That's a good question.
I just wonder if someone's planting a tree, if they might dig into it.
They need to call before they dig. If they're planting a tree, they should call. Any digging, you need to call before you dig. Please. And the electric utility and water utility will thank you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have three counselors wanting another round, and I realize we're overrunning our other session, so I'm,
Yeah, so the key piece for us on the next session is there is an open house on Wednesday, the 29th. We had hoped to give you the information before it's presented at the open house. The alternative would be is that you just wouldn't have the information before it goes out on the open house, and so.
well, can we do a quick round of these last three and then maybe have 15 minutes for a short
We'll do
abbreviated
a
version?
very quick
Abbreviated?
15-minute
Okay.
presentation.
All right, so let's see if I've got Alan, Jennifer, and then Claire each needing one more question.
Two quick questions, one for Ethan. Ethan, what percentage of our community greenhouse gas inventory is natural gas? It's 12% at the state. Do you know what it is for ours? While you're looking that up, I was at Fairmont Neighborhood Meeting last night. We were talking about this conversation we're about to have, and the issue came up about system leaks. I know you kind of addressed that, but you could address that a little bit more about what percentage gets leaked. How's your system? What are you doing about it? And more in particular, what are you doing about your upstream suppliers and what they're doing about it?
Yes. Well, our system, as I mentioned, because we've done all of our pipe replacement, I mentioned EDF came in and did an analysis of our system. We also report our leaks annually to the EPA, and our leaks system-wide of all of our throughput, it's less than 0.5%. Now, in terms of working with producers, we have a process that we're just starting to utilize that we're really excited about. We're taking the Subpart W EPA data, and we hired a technology company to come in and create an interface to that data for us. And what it's allowing us to do is look at by producer and by gas supply basin, the carbon intensity of the gas that we're looking to purchase. And we can now utilize that carbon intensity score, we're basically creating a scorecard, as another criteria in our gas purchasing decisions, so that we can be looking at best practice actors when we're considering our gas purchases.
So Councilor Zelenka, the numbers that we've got are around 310,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent, that would be, and this comes from the January 30th memo that we provided to you in regards to bridging that gap, the gap memo. And so we looked at that if 100% participation in Northwest Natural Gas's smart energy would reduce emissions by 310,000 metric tons. That's kind of what we see as that impact on an annual basis. So.
Thanks for that information. That wasn't a question I asked, but maybe you can provide the council with the pie chart of where our emissions come from.
Yeah, I can. We've got that info.
When you look at where the emissions come from, overwhelmingly what we should be focusing on is the transportation sector, and that's the one that's the hardest nut to crack, and the rest of the system doesn't even compare, or the rest of the emissions don't even compare to that, and this is a small portion of it, an important part of it, and we have leverage points for it, and we need to deal with it, but the real emphasis should be on transportation.
Correct.
It's our toughest part.
Okay, I'm going to do one more reality check because I still have three more counselors, so I'm going to let them speak, and I guess council, not me, not you, you're taking yourself out of the queue. Okay. All right.
Mayor, one of the things that we could probably do is on the 28th, we can move the equity and contracting update and replace it with the Franklin Boulevard, which is a little bit more timely. I think the important part is we actually would like the fuller 45 minutes to provide a fuller briefing on the Franklin Boulevard. And so trying to do it in 7.5 minutes would be pretty truncated.
I got you.
So
Okay,
we'll
so,
plan to just rearrange in order to get to you on the 28th, which will still be ahead of your
Thank
of
you.
the open house.
that sounds like a good plan. Okay, so now, Jennifer, another round.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you, Claire, for signing up for that. But I also don't think, I'm not super comfortable with some customers who are able to pay for it, paying for the pollution of everyone. I mean, I feel uncomfortable with that being our solution for this problem. And you made some good points. I think your industry is doing a lot of advancement in technology, but at the same time, while you're advancing, so is electric battery capacity advancing as well. So it's not we have choices, and we're not picking on only you guys. We're going to be picking on lots of people. We got the transportation folks. We need to look at all these sectors, but just because one sector is a small amount, we still need to look at it just as hard. And but I think we need to remember that we're not required to keep using natural gas. We may choose to keep using some of it, but there are other options. And by 2050, there's going to be a lot of other options. And if you guys can't bring us substantial reductions, I don't see 25% as being worth my investment in more infrastructure for natural gas when I can look in other places for better choices. So
I might quickly to the volunteer question, but then maybe to the second question. Just the question of should you rely on volunteers? The electric system, of course, has had green power products, but at the same time has had a renewable portfolio standard. And the theory behind that is we need to make sure that there's an increasing supply of renewables as part of the mix for everybody. But there will be always some people willing to do more or who want to do more. And whether it's a green power program on the electric side or our smart energy program, it allows that to happen. So I think I would agree with you if you didn't have some renewables going in for everybody and trying to push the envelope on how much renewable natural gas is there as part of your overall supply mix. But I think once you've done that, I feel good about there being a volunteer program as well.
On the matter of serving your community and the choices you'd have to make, I mean, I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that whatever the electric grid mix is today, serving the electric load today, is not what's going to be serving that new incremental load. Because the hydro system is capped, and yes, there are more and more renewables getting developed, but today we're at 8%, and Oregon is still using coal, and it's using more and more natural gas for generation. So if the intent is to go fossil-free by not having another natural gas pipeline or hookup, that is not going to be accomplished because you're still going to be using fossil generation to support that electricity. The reality is using natural gas directly in the pipeline is the most efficient way to use natural gas. When you use natural gas in an electric turbine, it isn't as efficient. Now, I'm not suggesting electric utilities shouldn't be relying on gas, because they should. It's dramatically reducing the carbon intensity of the grid as they're adding more and more renewable energy. And in terms of batteries, we've looked at batteries. E3 has looked at batteries. Batteries will have a role. There's no doubt about it. But batteries cannot deal with a 4-day winter peak. Batteries are 4 hours today, and maybe they'll get to 6, and maybe they'll even get to 10. But dealing with a 4-day cold weather event is very different, especially when you're considering the amount of energy. We're delivering more energy than the entire eWeb system today on that cold winter day. So what is more viable? Is it more viable to be decarbonizing our pipeline, or to try and replicate that kind of infrastructure on the electric grid to meet the same demand and actually get to the same GHG reduction goal? So again, that's our focus. We know that we can do it based on the analysis we've done. We just have to put our shoulder to it, and we have to have policy to help us get there, and we're optimistic about both.
Claire.
Thank you. There's a question I forgot to ask, and that's about the project with the municipal wastewater treatment plant. So is there a timeline for when that's going to come online?
It's really their project and their timeline. We're saying early 2020, it will be flowing. So you may know more. Why early 2020?
Yeah, but it's going to California. It's not staying locally.
For the short term.
They got better. They're going to pay us more. That's just reality. I mean,
That's the short-term reality, and we hope very much.
Approximately a year from now.
But we do have the contract, and we have the option to use it locally. So if something changes in the future, or if someone wants to use it for a fleet, it is built in that could be a possibility.
And actually, if the cap and trade bill is passed, that will give policy overlay to enable us potentially to purchase on behalf of our customers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I just have, I want to thank you for this presentation, and you've answered a lot of my questions in answering other people's questions. I'm really interested in the Power to Gas project, and I'll be really, I'm excited about that partnership and interested in it, both because of hydrogen being able to use presumably the same infrastructure. So the challenge I'm understanding with hydrogen in terms of transportation has been the infrastructure doesn't exist.
Right.
But if we begin to develop a system where we can actually deliver hydrogen for the transportation system, then we're beginning to have the bigger ticket impact on that. So that's of great interest to me going forward, and I'm excited that you're doing that work.
Thank you.
I did have, I got the answer.
Okay.
For Councilor Zelenka, it's, natural gas is 27%, roughly 29% of our GHG emissions for sector-based. So it doesn't include the consumption-based.
And when we, just to be clear, because I quoted 12%, the 12% I'm mentioning is on a location-based. And the reason we look at that analysis is that is looking at the regional mix, and it's looking at emissions in the same way that the cap and trade protocols would. Again, if you're thinking about moving large, vast amounts of energy from one system to another, you have to consider the regional mix, because that's how you would be serving that load.
Okay. Mike?
Did you ask how much of our energy use was gas?
How much of our greenhouse gas emissions comes from gas?
Okay. I thought that was the 5% you mentioned up front.
That's the statewide,
From customers, from residential commercial customers.
yeah.
Okay, everybody good? Thank you very much for a very thorough discussion. We appreciate it, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you